So you're up next.
Yes, and we had a little conversation. The Matrix, which is the other thing that we said he was going to do, and unfortunately it didn't happen, will be, I want to make sure I understand the structure. So the idea with the Matrix, because we're not at the last meeting, is to provide a document that can be compared year over year for this committee and for the whole commission as a way to keep track of where the money's going and what's happening with it. So the proposal, and that's why this was handed out, the budget addendum 14, the proposal is to take the buckets that city manager Norbert Dueñas laid out, which is 8 of them. I believe there's 8 of them, yes. Lay it out in a planned versus actual so that you can look at, here's the planned, the actual is some other amount of monies that we'll figure out. And then also just take those same buckets and project them backward for the first matrix. Project them backward so we have a total of 5 years worth of information in there, planned versus actual. For all of the reporting years, which is from now onward, there will also be a place in that matrix for results for you guys to talk about
Call it
the changes.
Findings / results or something like that. And that's what we're reporting on. This is what we found. This is what we found. Right. Yeah. So we looked at it, and that's what we found. We can, let's see.
We'll tweak it as it goes along. But I just want to make sure I have the right thing in my head before I start trying to do this and completely produce
it. And if you put this in a Word form, you can use Word.
It would probably be in Excel.
Or
it's easier for me.
Excel, okay. Yeah. And then you can cut and paste a lot of that stuff.
So that's the idea.
You're not going to have to read keyboard.
No, and that's the whole purpose of this. Is what I would love to do is just so that you can hide as we get. The 2018 data and the 2019 data, we start knocking off some of the previous back years. Yeah. They'll still live in the Excel spreadsheet, but they're not necessarily what are being produced for you guys to look at all the time, but they'll be there.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Excellent. And then I understand.
The text may change year to year too, right?
I think as you guys work on this, but it's just as the first year, this is the text that's going to be in there because that's the template. So. And again, Excel would allow me to do things like hide that column if that's something that you guys are no longer looking at in that particular year, or pull that column down and include it for past years and just, shift things around as necessary. It's not going to be that tough. Excel is
a nice
program.
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay, cool.
As we get into the detail on this, take a look at the first page, improved police response, add sworn police officers, blah, 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 blah. Adding 41 sworn positions. Do we know at this point whether that's been met?
I don't know. What we would know at this point is whether or not that's been budgeted for. So the money may be set aside in the budget for 41 positions, and whether or not they've all been hired for is a different kettle of fish.
And that would be a finding.
That would be a finding. Yeah.
Exactly.
It was budgeted. They did recruiting, and maybe they got 27 out of 41 were managed to during this reporting period. 21 out of the 47 were done.
What confuses me on this is the first sentence, so to recognize blah, 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 second line, effective 2017-2018 adds funding. So is that money taken out of the 16-17 MBA 14, or is this a different budget year, and how do we handle that difference? I mean, this MBA, all of this planned expense is done with.
Yes.
Okay, that budget year ended on June 30th.
Right.
This is all over. So there are numbers available somehow for this. Where it gets funny is when it starts talking about some of this will be moved into subsequent years. Yeah. And I don't understand what the intent is here.
Well, I think the idea is the rest of that sentence, which adds ongoing funding of $3.4 million to the police department. So I think the idea is that those 41 positions are going to require additional funding.
Right. But
year over year.
So are they going to? So it's just a comment.
I believe so.
Okay. So.
But I will ask Lee.
Okay.
I had a question about that. In regards to the the police officers' benefits, is that mixed in there as far as retention? Or the money that's been allotted, is that pure for hiring, or is that accounting?
Well, these are positions. This
Okay.
would be for everything related to the position, which would include benefits and retirement and everything else as worked out by the city in the, whatever the heck it was called, the,
Kiss and make up.
sure, that thing that got worked out last year.
Full-time equivalent
Yeah.
is basically what it is.
Yes.
It's for the whole position.
So
And
it's
you
for
get
the whole
hired,
thing.
and it includes just what you said, includes your retirement package, includes your post-training, includes everything.
Well, my question was as far as, you know, you have a slotted amount of money, you're gonna hire like 10 officers.
Mhm.
Then you have the benefits that you need to supply to, to those officers. Are you gonna have enough to meet that 41 quota?
That's what they should have calculated into this, would be the benefits
That's what
for
the
them in
3.4
addition
million
to
is
just
supposed to
their
be.
salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be.
But to
it should
Rich's
be.
point,
I
Yes.
hope so.
I would hope so too.
We would have the information
It'd be
on
a
that?
really big, I can ask the question, but
and could
It
you
would
ask
be a really
about
bad
one-time
problem.
things too? I think what you're actually going
Yeah.
at is there's some, I'll call them bribes, it's not a good word.
Non-reoccurring costs.
But there's some one-time things for the current people, please come back.
The bonuses.
Is that,
Bonuses,
and in
bonuses.
Along with that, yeah.
yeah, because you may get one because you're coming back, I get it because I'm a newbie. So there may be different costs associated with different positions as they rebuild, and it's just as long as there's some mechanism there. But the one-time costs would be important because I assume that those will go away in subsequent years.
Yeah.
So we may see.
for things, one-time costs being what specifically?
They're like encouragements to come back into the force.
Yeah, incentive.
Incentives,
Come back.
that's the word I'm looking for, thank you.
Yep, and quite a few of them came back.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very
this time
effective.
around,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was.
it
It
did.
was a great
But that's a
move.
one-time cost that applies to returnees, that
Yeah.
doesn't apply
Apply
to
to
new
ongoing
people,
full-time
or ongoing
employee,
people,
yeah.
And I think there's a window you could get into it and qualify this year, but if you don't do it in the next 6 or 8 months,
Then you're,
then you can
there's
come
no
back,
more
but you don't get the special
benefit.
benefit. Yeah.
incentive.
So, yeah,
Incentive.
incentive, yes.
Yeah,
I will ask.
Okay.
it's a good question.
Are there other questions while we're on this?
Could you just in general, and I apologize, I should have gone through this a little bit more. Does somebody in the budget office know whether these have all been addressed?
I hope so.
Wouldn't that be, I would assume so.
I
but,
would
you know.
hope so.
Yeah,
I mean,
well-
so what I'm assuming is going to happen is I'm going to look at some of these numbers also going backward in time. So I'm going to have to sit down with someone from the budget office anyway to ask about sort of these pots and like what's happened with them. These should be things that they, because it was called out in a budget addendum specifically, this should be something that people were looking at and paying attention to from last year into this year.
Yeah, but this was done 2 years ago, basically.
Fiscal year. From last fiscal year into this fiscal year.
And they got
May
more
2016.
provisional.
Yeah, so this is from the fiscal year 2015-16,
Yes,
relating to fiscal year 2016-17.
right.
And we are now entering fiscal year 17-18, so super confusing fiscal years.
Okay, I tell you what, I will read these more carefully, and if there's any questions, I'll just get back to you
Yeah,
before.
because I mean, something will have had to change, because this number, Lee told us this last time, this number was not what was collected.
And then what
Right,
you
so-
come up with, our next meeting will be January. And once again, I hate to sound like a broken record on this thing. It'll be iterative. You'll come up with a draft for January.
Yeah.
We'll kick it around and
Perfect,
play with, and then, get it resolved. So it doesn't have to be
100% done.
perfect, right out of the chute, okay? And then,
What I can commit to having for you guys by next time, because it's December and we are closed for a portion of December and people start leaving early and blah, 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 is I can commit to getting this version, the 16-17 budget matrix set.
Right.
I cannot necessarily promise that I will have had somebody from the budget office sit down with me to do looking backward portion of it yet, but I'm just going to make that clear.
That's a starting point. That's what we need. We need a starting point so we can see what we have to fill in or massage or whatever.
Sounds good. Works for me.
That's the way.
Cool.
Out of curiosity, in the future or even now, these buckets are you know,
Hiring new.
is it possible for them to take money and just throw it into another bucket?
Yes.
They can drain that whole bucket and just kind of, they need it for the other bucket?
Well, it's because of the way, because this was a general sales tax, it's a 1/4% general sales tax. The money isn't being put into any buckets as it's collected. It's just being collected, and then the city decides where they're going to spend it. So some years it could be that, especially let's look at the example we're looking at, improved police response, add sworn police officers. 2016-17, if that got done,
Right.
then they're like, we're finished. We don't need to spend money on that on an ongoing basis. Like, we may have this ongoing cost that rolls over, but we're not adding additional full-time staffers, so we don't have,
Yes.
we're not making this bucket any bigger.
Right.
And then that major street repair, that's done. That's done for a while, right? Like, it's
Sure.
just done. Well, we hope at some point. We hope at some point the streets will get better. Then that bucket would be, we don't need it, so we're going to get rid of that bucket, which is what he was saying to me about, or what you were saying to me, that some of these descriptors are going to change over time.
Yeah.
So
But
that's,
what might happen, but continuing on what you're saying, that police thing might go down because they got the 41 or whatever it was, and the street repair as well. But it's still within those same 4 or 5 buckets that Measure B supposedly
Pulled out.
addressed.
and
So you can shift around in that Measure B allocations as appropriate, as long as that Measure B money stays within that framework.
Okay.
We don't want Measure B money going somewhere else that wasn't identified in the measure.
Now, who's
Which is what my
responsible for
concern
the
is.
money, like, being allotted to these certain, is that city council or city manager's office?
that would be the budget office.
Budget office?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the budget office responding to council directives on a ongoing basis, as well as city manager directives regarding this is actually how much it actually costs to do these things. Because council says, we want this, someone figure out how much it costs. And it comes to the city manager's office who decides how much it costs. So the budget office does that negotiation every single year. And depending on what's going on at a given point, right now, housing is a really big deal. So maybe reduce homelessness ends up looking next year more like increase affordable housing developments by doing whatever, by building more of them, by the city building, I don't know, city building some of them. It would serve the same general purpose, but it's not specifically just for homeless people. It's for people who could become homeless because the cost of living here is so ridiculous.
Low income.
Yeah. Or, medium income people,
Oh,
because
yeah, exactly.
I think
Medium income are
just,
becoming low income.
I just looked at, there was a new house, it's an old house in, right off the Alameda by the church that was up for being looked at. It said on the sheet, in order to qualify for a 30-year fixed mortgage and putting down 20%, you have to make $18,000 a month. I was like, who makes $18,000 a month? Even if there's two of you, that's
Yeah.
$9,000 a month. Who makes $9,000 a month? That's never happening for me. Like, that's just crazy.
It was a 3-bedroom?
It was a 2-bedroom. 2-bedroom,
Two-bedroom.
2-bath.
How much was it?
More than $1 million for sure. But I mean, that was
If
just
I
the
was moving,
calculation. I'm just like,
if I was coming in here, I couldn't afford to put it.
Oh, I
It's
could afford my own
insane.
house that I have. I couldn't afford to buy it.
Well, I mean, I'd be out in
I couldn't even
Tracy or
qualify.
whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
you'd be
that's why
out
I stopped
there.
and,
somewhere.
and commuting. I
Yeah.
mean, that's reality. I mean, that's just, and I work with people doing that.
Yeah.
They had a bus, they rented a bus. They come in every day from Tracy.
Yeah.
Busload, at least 2 busload. One went to Lockheed, one went to.
That's part of the reason that high-speed rail has heated up the way it has, is because it's a way to connect some of those more remote communities
Right.
and
Yep.
turn that
And you go
into
back
commuting
east,
as opposed to
You go back east, that's a fact of life.
Yeah.
back. Yeah, but
Commuting.
it's a much shorter distance. Like I lived in
Well,
Providence
you're
and I worked
you're
in
coming
Boston,
you're
but like
coming
it was
in
an hour.
from Out in Long Island and some of those places, it's over an hour or so more commute.
Mm-hmm.
And people come in from Long Island, and even, I've been on the subway and going out to Brooklyn was on the Express, the New Lots Express was 45 minutes. That was an express subway, that thing was going, so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, people do commute. It just, the commute looks like
It's
deadlocked
brutal if
traffic
you're-
here as
it's
opposed
brutal
to
if you're
elsewhere.
driving.
Oh,
it's brutal if you're driving.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
It really
And
is
it's
awful.
just, you know, it's just the way it is, so.
Anyway, I'm weighing in on my own personal opinions on this stuff, sorry.
Can I, on the MBA 14 thing, I just kind of, I should have done this before I got here. One of the items, reducing homeless, $2 million tossed to that, we just tossed that. That's not on our list of buckets. Is that something we need to comment on? Fund essential services, you know, improving police response to reduce violent crimes and burglaries, improving 911, repairing potholes in streets, expanding gang prevention, and
What are you
maintaining
looking at?
long-term
What are you
physical.
looking at in the plan?
He's looking at 2.1 charter.
It's
The
the ballot
language and the
measure
ballot
language,
measure.
yes.
Fund essential city services such as. It's page 1 of 3.
Oh, one.
Is this something that we're gonna have to get into, or does?
Presumably, you guys are gonna have to make a recommendation about why homelessness was pulled out.
And the
and
reason
it's
I'm
not
bringing it up,
named here.
maybe when you have your little conversations with the budget office,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of whisper around on that a little bit and get some sense of what they were thinking of when they did this.
I'm pretty sure council directed them, which is why they stuck it in here.
Do you think about
This
it?
It was council
plan-
directed, yeah.
This
Yeah.
plan was, I
Because
had
he
narrow
calls it out,
focus.
he calls it out in the beginning of his memo.
I had a narrow focus on
Yeah.
what the wording of the measure was. So I
And
didn't,
rightfully so.
I kept it this way, not this way.
Provisional budget
So-
prioritized public safety services and other critical services such as pothole repair, pavement maintenance, and rapid rehousing of homeless. So he pulls it out specifically as critical service.
Yeah, my only point is that it's not in the ballot measure
Yeah.
language itself, and certainly do we need to explain it as, you know? Because in the end, I think
true.
what people are expecting us, the regular, normal people of San Jose, are looking at us to go, we gave you a sales tax increase, did they spend it in the way that it should have been spent? And that's the question they really want to ask us.
Yeah, I understand.
And
And I think,
technically, no.
well, technically, it is in, this would count as an essential city service. That's how the city is making that determination. It doesn't fall into the such
So it's
as
not a
list.
such as, yes,
But it
okay.
falls into the first part of that
Okay.
sentence.
Okay.
Well,
good.
wasn't there
Rapid
another measure on the
rehousing.
ballot that addressed the tiny homes or the homeless housing
In 2016?
on the past?
There was a housing bond, but that was at the county level. Is that what you mean?
$3 million
Yeah,
or
there
3
was-
billion or whatever. it
Yeah,
was.
there was
Yeah.
a measure about,
Yeah, because
But that was
Carl
county. That was
Gardino,
county.
that was
does
county.
the city get any of that money? Or is that the county's?
I think it
I
goes all
don't
to
know how
the
that
county.
works out, actually.
I think what I'm referring to is, for instance, like right now, the districts, the tiny homes are supposed to go in the districts.
Mhm.
Is that money that's coming from here?
From our services, yeah.
Yeah, for the sales tax?
Is it coming from the sales tax?
Yeah,
Maybe, that's part of what you guys have to look at this time around.
okay.
It is certainly coming from the city, because the housing department has been the one putting together the plan, doing the evaluations, working with planning on where things can go. They had to present to council, whatever that was 2 weeks ago. And then council came back and said we need to make it so there's a much larger protected radius around schools and homes. So they've had to go back to the drawing board, like that's the housing department. So money is being allotted to it by just paying housing staff. Whether it's coming from the sales tax, that's what's harder to figure out. And there's no way to strictly figure it out for you guys unless you're doing the audit, which you're not, because you're specifically called out. The auditor is called out separately in the ballot measure from what you guys are doing. So that's where we got this really kind of like wonky, you guys aren't really sure how to track this.
Okay.
Which is fair, because it's a little complicated to track.
Is there an audit? They told us last month, no. He told us there would not be one, and it's not in the language.
Well, it's not in this language, but it actually is in the full language of the ballot measure.
It is?
Mhm.
Okay. Then we'll want to go back to them, when are we going to get the results?
Of
He
the
told us
audit?
no.
The audit?
I was stunned.
Was
I
that-
don't remember him saying no,
He said there was
but
no audit coming.
maybe he just meant from you guys. I don't, but it's
Okay.
pulled out in the
When I,
language.
when I parsed this out, this goes back some time ago, so it's back to June of 16 when I did this. I came out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just took the measure B language
Right, this,
specifically, just measure B, and I just made sense. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items is identified in that measure were improving police response, improving 911 emergency medical response, repairing potholes and streets, expanding gang prevention, and maintaining the city's long-term financial stability.
Yep, and those
That's
are the five that
all
are
that was in there. Now,
listed.
some of this stuff in here, and I
Does
I
not
hear
fall
what
in
you're
those
saying,
buckets, yeah.
it does not fall into those categories.
There's not. Sure it does.
No. Where does homeless fit in that?
Well, that's the one exception.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I say
The rest of it is all
maintain
public
major
safety.
streets, improve
Or streets,
fire,
transportation,
medical,
yeah.
police response is fine, fire, reduce homelessness, I don't see that. Improve response to burglary and neighborhood crime, that's that police response. Expand police recruitment and hiring, I guess that can fall under maybe police response, you can maybe
Yep.
lump that in there. Because it's really, working smarter to reduce and solve crime, I don't know how that fits in there, that's kind of a
That's about police response too, I would say.
motherhood thing. But anyway, so the only one that's not really in there is that homeless.
Right. It's in this one here, which goes into this, but it's not in yours, and it's not in the ballot
It's
measure.
not in the
It's not,
ballot.
it wasn't listed specifically in the ballot measure,
No,
but
it's not.
the city is fine because the ballot measure, because of the words such as. But I understand what you're saying, that you guys and most people who voted for it are gonna feel like, well, we thought that's what it went for.
If I was
but-
making up that matrix, I would not
Yeah.
include that.
No.
Well, the only problem is you guys are going to have to account for things that the money was spent on, even
That's
if it
right.
wasn't a part of this.
Right,
It's
you
just,
would-
that would be
and-
part of the finding, I would
That
say.
be a
It
finding.
would be,
That would be a finding.
right, I would include it, but put it in like a different color or something in the finding. I don't know. Excel. Shading.
So is the public gonna see our findings?
Yes, you guys do have to present them. Maybe not in the matrix, but you guys have to present a letter every single year.
Well, I think our report,
Yeah, every single
we're
year.
gonna produce a report, it'll be more than a memo, it will be a report, and that report, a significant part of that report will be that matrix. And we will address the matrix and
You guys
address
do it
each finding.
any
I mean,
way
that's
you
the way
want. Yeah,
that's
that's
the way I
fine.
envision it. We have, here's the matrix, and then we will report on each finding, finding of the, da-da-da-da-da. I mean,
That's totally fine. I just meant that the only requirement
Yeah.
is that you guys submit something in
Yeah.
writing every year. It doesn't have to be a matrix, but if that's how you want to do it,
I
then
think we
it's
gotta
how you do
It's
it.
a
justify-
report,
we
just like
justify
Gary
all-
says, we have to
you
produce
gotta
a report.
justify all this pay and resources they've given us to,
Yeah.
something to show for that.
Resources.
You got something to show for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts?